You ever stop and think about it? How can a government that's trillions of dollars in debt suddenly, almost magically, come up with trillions more when a crisis hits? It doesn't seem to make any sense, right? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on what might be the biggest and frankly the weirdest secret in all of modern economics. All right, let's get into it.
Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like something from a magic show, not an economic policy. But this is the key to the whole puzzle we're about to unpack. And look, this isn't some wild conspiracy theory or a glitch in the system. As you're about to see, this is the system.
Let's just rewind back to 2008 for a second. The entire global financial system is teetering on the edge of a cliff. The government decides it needs $700 billion, and it needs it like yesterday. There's no time to hold a bake sale or find it in the couch cushions. The money just appeared to bail out the banks.
Okay, now fast forward to 2020. The pandemic hits, and in response, the US government unleashes nearly $3 trillion, and they did it in just a few weeks. That is more than 4 times the 2008 number in a tiny fraction of the time. I mean, the sheer scale of that is it's mind-boggling. So, this is the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? If the country was already broke, already running a massive deficit, where did all this cash possibly come from? That is the mystery we are going to solve right here, right now. So, to get to the real answer, first we have to talk about the story we're all told. You know, the official explanation for how government money works. It sounds simple, it makes intuitive sense, and, as we're about to find out, it's completely wrong when it comes to moments like these.
The official line goes something like this. A government is just like a big household. It's got income, that's taxes. And if it wants to spend more than its income, well, it has to borrow the rest. It does that by selling bonds, which are basically just IOUs.
Seems pretty straightforward and responsible, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing. That story completely falls apart when you're talking about trillions of dollars in just a few weeks, especially during a global lockdown. I mean, seriously, who had $3 trillion of spare cash just lying around to lend to the US government when the entire world economy was on pause? The math, it just doesn't work.
So, if the money wasn't borrowed from someone in the traditional sense, then what happened? This is where we get to the real heart of it. And it's less about boring accounting and, honestly, a lot more like a conjuring trick.
And here it is, the blunt truth. The money wasn't shuffled around, it wasn't taken from another budget, it wasn't borrowed from some giant global piggy bank. It simply did not exist, and then, with a few keystrokes on a computer, it did. Poof.
So here's how the trick actually works, in 3 simple steps. Step 1. The US Treasury needs cash, so it issues bonds, those IOUs. Step 2, at the same time, the central bank, our Federal Reserve, creates brand new digital money out of thin air. We're not talking printing presses, just new numbers in an account. And step 3, the Fed uses that newly created money to buy those bonds from the big banks. It's a neat little loop. The Treasury gets the cash to spend, and the Fed gets the government debt on its books.
Now, of course, they have a name for this process, and it is designed to sound as technical and boring as humanly possible: quantitative easing, or QE. It's a mouthful, right? It's meant to make your eyes glaze over, but all it really means is the central bank creating money to buy government debt. That's the whole game.
Okay, so right about now you're probably thinking, wait a minute, isn't that basically an economic cheat code? Shouldn't creating money out of thin air cause insane runaway inflation? And for a long, long time, weirdly enough, it didn't. Let's figure out why.
And you can see just how much they used this cheat code right here. This chart shows the Fed's balance sheet, basically how much stuff it's bought with this created money. Before 2008, it was less than $1 trillion. By 2015, it was $4.5 trillion. And by 2022, it exploded to $9 trillion. This wasn't a small adjustment. This was a fundamental shift. But here's the crazy paradox. For more than 10 years after 2008, while the Fed was creating trillions, inflation was basically asleep at the wheel, super low. Economists were scratching their heads. Then, after the 2020 money creation, bam, inflation suddenly rocketed to 40-year highs. So what gives? What was different this time? Well, the whole answer comes down to one crucial thing: where the money actually went. See, after 2008, that new money mostly stayed locked up inside the banking system. It pumped up stocks and bonds, but didn't really leak out into the real world. But in 2020, they mailed checks directly to you and me. That money hit Main Street hard, and you had all these new dollars chasing the same amount of stuff to buy. And that, my friends, is inflation. Now, you gotta understand, this isn't just an American thing. Not at all. The US might be the biggest player,
But this whole create money to fund the government trick has become a standard part of the playbook for pretty much every major country on Earth. So that leads to the obvious question. If the people in charge know this can light a fire under inflation and cause all sorts of problems, why on earth do they keep doing it? It seems kind of insane, right? Well, the answer has very little to do with good economics and everything to do with political reality.
The thing is, modern governments are basically caught in a trap. They've made huge promises to their citizens for things like Social Security, healthcare, defense, that cost way more than they bring in with taxes. But what are their options? Raising taxes? That's political suicide. Cutting popular spending programs? Also political suicide. So, what's the easy way out? The path of least resistance? You guessed it. Just create the money.
And you can see this movie playing out all over the world, just at different speeds. You've got Japan, which has been doing this for 30 years and is stuck in this weird low-growth funk with a mountain of debt. Then you have countries like Turkey or Argentina, where they push it too far and you see the end game, hyperinflation. The US gets more leeway because the whole world uses the dollar, but don't be mistaken, the underlying physics are exactly the same.
So, what's the ultimate limit then? If you can technically create an infinite amount of money, what actually stops this whole thing from going on forever? Well, the answer isn't a number you can find on a spreadsheet. It's something much, much more fragile. It's trust. It might not happen overnight, but the bill always comes due. Slowly, the value of your money gets eaten away. Inflation flares up, acting like a stealth tax on every dollar you've saved. But the real danger, the end game, is when people, en masse, just lose faith that the money is worth anything at all.
And this is maybe the single most important thing to understand. Confidence in a currency isn't like a dial you can slowly turn down. It's more like a light switch. Everything seems fine and normal, for years, decades even. And then, all of a sudden, it isn't. When belief breaks, it can break with terrifying speed.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling question to think about. This entire complex global financial system we live in is built on nothing more than a shared belief, a collective agreement that these numbers on a screen actually have value. So, what happens to all of us when that belief finally shatters?